Okay, we got a few minutes left here, so let's talk about this abomination prayer prophecy and the fulfillment of it that we saw recently. We recently saw a manifestation of this prophecy, and it went right under a lot of people's noses. But a lot of intelligent people were not blind to the fact that right after Obama went and met with the Pope, the next day the Pope could not even interact with people because he felt so guilty about whatever he agreed to during that meeting with Obama that he publicly, in shame, went and confessed himself. He had to render confession before he could accept any confessions. Now, what's that tell you? Okay, because these guys are constantly either abstaining from sin or confessing of their sin. All right, in his very next opportunity to publicly confess of his sins after meeting Obama, that's what he did. He could not even see to his duties until he felt he had absolved himself of what he had agreed to. All right. Well, what did he agree to? He agreed to fulfilling a negative part in the negative prophecies regarding this era. The end of this earth age. How do we know this? Because of his actions, the things he has done, the things he has spoken out against, and the things that he does not speak out against. Speaks volumes about his character and who he's running with. All right. Then, not too long after that, here's where the fulfillment of the prayer that is an abomination to God publicly became fulfilled. He had the Muslim leaders come in and share in a day of prayer with him. All right. Now, many don't know this, that it's an affront to God. It's an abomination to him. It's sacrilege, literally, to approach him without first having obtained the forgiveness of his Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua. So for you to dare to approach God, while you say you believe in God, but you dare to approach him without first accepting his Son as his Son, and as the propitiation for your sins, his sacrifice, then you dare to step over what God laid out for you to approach him. You see, so it's an abomination to him, because to say that you believe in God and to deny that Jesus Christ, Yeshua, is his Son makes you an infidel in the eyes of God, the one who matters. God, Allah, sees all who do not accept his Son but who accept him as infidels. You cannot accept God, Allah, and approach him without first accepting the sacrifice of his Son, and that it was for you, to forgive you of your sins. You see, so that you no longer have to abide by the letter of the law that has you stoning your wife, for instance. You see, or resorting to honor killings. Okay? Now, honor killings, you wouldn't have to resort to honor killings if you just obey God and what he said do. What he say do if people do not live how you live? He didn't say go infiltrate their land and live among them and try to change them. He said stay the fuck away from them. Do not go amongst them. Okay? That's what God said. So you don't even immigrate to America and then call yourself want to kill one of your kids because they become Americanized. Because the fault for that sin is your own fault. So if you bring your kid to America and they become Americanized, then you have to kill yourself to restore honor to your family, not your kid. You were the one who led your kid astray by bringing them into a corrupt land by your own eyes, okay? I mean, some people see y'all as the corrupt ones because look at what happens when you have a religion based on infidelia, infidelity. This is infidelity to God, to regard some man, that is not his Son, as a higher authority on the subject of God than his own Son, who came here among us, birth of a woman. You see? Can you understand this? It's simple logic about God's mentality. All right, so to approach him as a Muslim Islamic infidel who's engaged in infidelity against God, you know, it's like to approach him and to act like you have the right to approach him is an abomination to him. This is an abomination to him. This brings down curses upon you, upon your religion, and upon your people, and upon your land. All right? And then you wonder why, you know, a bunch of shitworm controlled monsters, you know, they control another nation and have infiltrated its government completely, you know, can terrorize your land. Well, they can do that as long as you're not under the protective hand of the blessing of God, Allah. You see? As long as you hate those who are not infidels, the Christians who accept Jesus Christ are not infidels. The ones who deny that Jesus Christ is God's son are the infidels. You see? Now, if you would just simply accept God's law that he told you when John the Baptist was murdered by that king way years ago while Jesus Christ was still on earth, you know, 2,000 years ago, well, it was only 2 days God time. If you would just accept what God himself said through the mouth of his son, that you will not see another prophet from God like John the Baptist until the very end time, right before that great and terrible day of the Lord. Okay, that's this day. That's not however many hundreds of years ago it was that, you know, this infidel prophet came along and wrote his book promoting infidelity against God. It's adultery. It's an adulterous spirit. So it's no wonder that if you have your wife believing under these adulterous spirit guidelines regarding God, that she's not going to be faithful to you as the head of her household because you are an adulteress against God. Do you see how you are a little bitch who won't be faithful to God? God laid out the guidelines how he wants his bride to approach him. You don't want to be God's bride. You don't want to be God's. You want to be yours, and you want God to fit in your box. So then God gets associated to violence due to y'all. God gets associated to adultery due to y'all. God gets associated to raping the wife of another man and then stoning her to death before she can testify that she was raped. You know, you associate God to pedophilia, fucking little children and marrying them. You associate God to torturing little kids and maiming them, cutting their clits off while they're only 6 years old. That's fucking sick. You know, cut your dicks off if you don't want something to experience pleasure. Because contrary to what any fool told you, women were not created for the pleasure and the use of man. You won't find anywhere where God said that. God, Allah, never said that women were for the use and the pleasure of man. He did not say that. Okay? Women were created to be a helpmate and companion to men. You know, with equal thought and equal contribution to the marriage and the household. You see, okay, so like there should be no. I'll give you an example of this: the spirit of adultery and the things it does. This came to my mind today. This poor guy. Pardon me. I know a guy. We'll call him Brian. He worked like 2 jobs. He was always working, man, trying to provide for his wayward hoe of a wife. Okay. And he worked like as a baker at Farmer Jack's and shit like that. There used to be a great huge grocery store chain called Farmer Jack's years ago. All right, and he worked for them and all kinds of other people, you know, making money to support his family. You know, he had a couple kids by this adulterous white hoe. We'll call her Ginger. Okay, and she was had it instilled in her from, you know, the adultery of her mother possibly, or maybe from being molested, who knows, because molested people do commit adultery, and they do molest the lives of others, and they do divide the homes of others, right? It's something they can't help themselves, you see. So it's like she, instead of getting a job and helping take some of the weight off of her husband so he could work less and they could spend more time together, she opts instead to, while he's at work, have other men in her house that he's paying for, the home that he's paying for, supporting her in. Have them in her house, have them in her body, you know. It's like, and it divided their house. You know, everything crumbled for them. You see, because a house divided against itself cannot stand. All right? Now, this is the concept behind you know, the abomination, the prayer of abomination. It's an abomination to approach God. Without the protective shield of the faith of the covering of the sacrifice of the blood of his son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua. I don't know how to make y'all understand that somebody came along and took away your key to the kingdom, your key to the throne room to approach God. And then every time you approach God, every time you pray, you're committing an abomination and sacrilege against God, because you don't believe God. You don't accept his own words. He said that this is my son in whom I am well pleased. That came from the sky, from God's voice, in an era before they could do anything like that. This was 2,000 years ago. They didn't have the technology to do this shit back then. All right? The big booming voice that thousands upon thousands of people heard. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. When the last prophet who was on earth before now, when the last prophet was on earth who baptized God's son. The last prophet on earth baptized God's son. Okay? No. God said, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Okay? God darkened the sky the whole afternoon that they were crucifying his son for your sins, and then you turn around and you spit in God's face and call him a liar, and you trample the blood of his sacrifice. You trample his own blood, and then you dare call yourself that you represent God, or that you know God. God doesn't know you. You're going to step before the judgment seat, and God's going to say, depart from me, worker of iniquity. I know you're not, because you don't have the key of David. Yeah, the key to the kingdom, the key to approach God, which is a belief in his son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, which is an acceptance of his sacrifice, in exchange for your sins, to buy your spirit back from the spirit scan. Do you understand this concept? And that means, you don't just say, oh, yes, I believe in Jesus Christ. Yes, I accept him in my heart. I'm saved. And then you go right on living the way you were living. No, when you actually become really connected to Jesus Christ, where you're really saved, it's like a Twitter feed into your mind. You constantly get fed with positive thoughts and positive things you can do to combat the spirit that used to control you when you did not have that connection to Jesus Christ. There will be a marked, notable change in your demeanor and in who you are and how you approach your days when you actually connect to Jesus Christ. You will start trying to do good on earth instead of being an evil little bitch that always wants everybody to accept your fucking perspectives and your beliefs. You'll start being a little bit more open to what other people believe and why they believe the way they do. You see, I understand this infidelity against God, that for hundreds of years it's been instilled into them, okay, by this evil entity, more evil than Satan or Lucifer could ever be. And, we can't attribute any evil that we've experienced on this planet since it's entered premonition of existence phase, which is also doubling as a spirit scan phase, which went into effect 2,000 years ago when Christ had Lucifer incarcerated in God's realm and had his interdimensional pass revoked so that he can no longer travel back and forth between the realms as described in the book of Job. Okay, so he can no longer externally motivate the thoughts of mankind. He can no longer influence mankind. Okay, and it's been this way for 2,000 years, our time, which is only 2 days God time. Okay, because 1,000 years on earth is as 1 day with God. Okay, so it's like it's only been 2 days to them, but it's been 2,000 years here. And for at least half of this 2,000 years that we've had an infidelity problem. Infidelity against God, just a whole religion running amok, committing adultery against God. They dare approach God. They dare lay in his bed. They dare associate themselves to him and say they're married to him, while they commit adultery, against him with a man. It ain't even a devil. It ain't even Lucifer. It ain't even a fallen angel. They commit an adultery with a common man. Somebody was probably molested by his mother and traded for opium, as a sex slave when he was a child, is why he hates God and everybody else so bad he would cause everybody to kill each other and associate it to God, you see? So it's like pedophiles beget pedophiles, and they do pedophilic shit when they get older. And, that was a pedophilic book, and it's a pedophilic religion, and it's infidelia.